Welcome back to the channel. This video I'm calling Police Speed Trap for two very good reasons. One, I genuinely believe that these were traps of some sort. And two, this was a very long time ago from my own personal experience and way before I became a barrister. The first of those experiences was very unfortunate because it was just a few weeks after I passed my driving test, age 17, which obviously meant if I had my license endorsed for a second time, I might lose my license and have to retake my driving test. So here are the circumstances of that fateful night, and I'll let you decide whether you think this was fair or not. So there was a stretch of road, roughly 50% of which was a 30-mile-an-hour limit, and the remainder of which was national speed limit. Being a single carriageway, this obviously was 60 miles an hour. This was late at night, there was nothing else on the road. I was leaving the 30-mile-an-hour zone into the 60-mile-an-hour zone, and I believed that I was into the 60-mile-an-hour zone having increased my speed. So at the point that I was flashed, I was doing 38. But in my mind, I was in the 60-mile-an-hour zone. Duly pulled over by the police officers stationary at the side of the road with their radar gun, they told me that they firmly believed I was within the 30-mile-an-hour zone whilst doing 38. Now, being 17 years old, feeling rather intimidated by the police and being told that if I didn't agree to the 3 points that I would go to court and risk many more points, I simply agreed there and then to have my license endorsed with 3 points. But to this day, I do not believe that I was in the 30-mile-an-hour zone. I believe that I was in the 60-mile-an-hour zone when I'd increased my speed. And in any event, I wasn't presented with any evidence as to which part of the road I was on, other than the officer's word. So suffice to say, I accepted the points, I accepted the fine until they disappeared from my license, until what I will call part 2 of my otherwise impeccable driving history. Part 2 of my honest experiences in this video that I'm calling Police Speed Trap is a little bit more ambiguous than the first, but again, I'll let you be the judge, but I would challenge you in the same position to do differently than what I did on this fateful evening. Part 2. So this time I'm just a few years older and picking up my father from a work due at 2 in the morning on the other side of town. Obviously it's pitch black, I'm on my own, I'm fairly young and I'm driving through town. For anyone that frequents Birmingham, you will know the dual carriageway that approaches the old fire station island through Newtown. I was driving through Newtown at 2 o'clock in the morning when a black BMW was driving right up behind me, leaving very little space between it and me, up to the lights at Newtown. Now, in the 3/4 of a mile or so approaching the lights at Newtown, this black BMW was right up behind me, leaving little to no space. So, admittedly, I did increase my speed just a little bit because I wanted to put a little bit of distance between me and the black BMW. And before anyone says it, I was not able to move over to the left any because I was already in the left-hand lane approaching Newtown before the lights. Once over the flyover, I did move over to the left, and this black BMW did move over with me, leaving just the same short amount of distance between it and me. Once approaching the lights began to change, but I carried on through the lights on amber, which, as far as I'm aware, is perfectly fine if you consider it to be dangerous to slam your brakes on to stop before the lights change to red. Obviously, had the lights turned to red, I wouldn't have gone through. However, as you might have guessed by now, as I went through those lights, on amber remember, I saw in my rear view mirror little blue twinkly lights aside the headlights of this black BMW behind me. Remember, it was so close to me, this was all I could see in my rear view mirror. Sure enough, it was an unmarked police car. It pulled me over, they invited me into the rear of their vehicle, and they showed me the video of them tailing me for the last 3/4 of a mile when I increased my speed, obviously, as I explained, to put a little distance between me and it, because we were driving through Newtown, it was a black BMW, and I felt, frankly, somewhat intimidated, being just some 22 years old. And then they said I went through the traffic lights while it was on amber, and altogether I was driving dangerously and gave me 3 points on my license. Again, they said if I objected, I could have my day in court, they would present the video, I would go to court and most likely get many more points on my license, which to some degree, they're probably right. If it went to court and the magistrate agreed with the police, as they often do, I might have ended up with many more points on my driving license, a higher fine, and been in much more serious trouble. However, despite being ID checked in Tesco just a few weeks ago, that was many, many years ago, whether you believe it or not. I've learnt a lot since then, I've considered it a lot since then, and given it some thought, I would have personally challenged that evidence if I had this knowledge at that point in time, because I believe that was unjust. I believe that car was tailing me. I believe they were pushing me. I believe the police car was unmarked. I believe they were breaking the law by following me so closely. And all in all, I do not think it's in the interest of justice for that police car to have been following me so closely to then give me 3 points just because I increased the distance between them and me, because frankly I felt slightly intimidated. And as I said in the first example, I believe I was in the 60 zone, not in the 30 zone, and there was no evidence other than the officer's word that I was in the 30 zone and not the 60 zone. So on both counts, I believe these were police speed traps, and I think they were unjust. I hope the practices have changed, and I'm pleased to say I've never been caught with anything ever since. But I do wonder how many instances like this that you feel were unjust, that you wanted to challenge but didn't for fear of going to court and having more points, a higher fine, and ultimately just felt that it was unjust. Please do leave me your stories and comments down below. Email them if you want them to remain anonymous, and as always, thank you for watching.